Hello, everybody. Welcome to our weekly Aquatics Talk Q&A discussion. We have these conversations about all things aquatics. We meet every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. You know, our goal is to share ideas about the aquatics industry and help others have access to other professionals. encourage you to jump over to aquaticstalk.com. We've got an email newsletter I'm trying to get kind of rolling and packaged up to give you a good, concise breakdown of everything we're doing, and see past conversations and see how to join us live. You can also join our panel for registering for the Zoom webinar and then asking to be a panelist. You can also submit questions. We've got a link up on that webpage where you can throw your questions in. And then with that said, I'm going to jump into the first question. So the first question came from Chelsea, a regular attender who had to be out on deck today. Chelsea's preparing to take over a swim team program. What are some resources for a new coach? Anybody want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, I will. I've been coaching for 38 years. I coached collegiately at the University of Wyoming, and I coached club swimming for about 14 years. So USA Swimming is probably her best place to find resources and even how to start a club, as well as the American Swim Coaches Association. And right now they're offering memberships for $1. Normally they're like $75 through the end of the year. And they have a terrific website and a terrific director right now. And they're really pushing the envelope in coach education and club management.
Nice.
Great.
I'd jump on board with that and check out USA Paraswimming as well, because a lot of coaches, I think, are very unprepared when somebody with a disability comes to their swim team, and getting those basic resources from them is a great way to get started too.
Great. And I would say check with the American Swim Coaches Association. Lots of great stuff there. I would also say, buyer beware, but there is a lot of good resources on YouTube, but just take a filter through it as you're going through. Just make sure you're being thoughtful and it lines up with all of your other resources. All right, I'm going to jump over to the next question. Next one comes to us from, there was a Facebook group member that had some concerns about dealing with a difficult staff member. And this was a carry forward from last week where, we had a question, didn't quite get to it. So on this one, the staff member said, they asked for resources for dealing with a difficult staff member. They went through and they're as the manager, demeanor changes when they get the staff member comes into the room. They really have a difficult time managing their own emotions around this person. So it sounds like there's some history there. And I don't know if anybody on the panel wants to try to chime in and try to help out with this.
I think that obviously it depends on what kind of an organization you're in, and if you have some human resources help, definitely be sure and hit them up for help with that. And also sometimes in situations like that where it can become emotional, if there can be a third party in the room with you, somewhat as a mediator, or not that you're battling, but someone else in the room that kind of keeps the tone of things down. It can help. It's hard when and especially when people have been on staffs and then somebody gets promoted above someone. It can make it tough. But they're going to have to address it at some point, because both of their performances are going to suffer. And certainly you don't want to be miserable. We all know what it's like, when you have that naked lap swimmer in the morning and you really don't want to face them and all of that kind of stuff. It's sort of the same situation where you need to talk it out and figure out what works for both. And sometimes you can find out that the person has a total misconception of how you feel about them.
I would also like to know, is it something that's disciplinary, or is it just more of a personal issue between the two people? Because if it's something that could lead to disciplinary action, to make sure that you're definitely getting, the appropriate written documents to keep track of what's going on. So if it does escalate, you have backup.
Good.
Yeah, I would chime in also, just that the person, I would encourage you to, I think it's good that they've got a good start and they're checking their own emotions about it, and they're recognizing that a lot of the problem is with them. And I would just encourage them to continue to try to work through that and understand that they may not understand everything that that staff member has going on. And over education, over time, maybe take a pause and understand it's not going to be good for a while, but that you can work on it. And eventually, just because it's not good now doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. And it can get better over time. I've had that with different staff members where I'm just like, this person just does not want anything to do with me. I can tell that. And as their supervisor, I have a hard time managing them. But over time, being consistent, celebrating wins, looking for the good that that person provides. Like this person was, I'll try to be as vague as possible. They had some lifeguarding practices that I did not agree with and were not acceptable at all. And they were very difficult to provide coaching to. And when they were in that realm, they were not very, they would do just enough to stay inside the line, but also not being cooperative. But recognizing their successes in swimming and like their swimming lesson program, it was huge. I mean, they did a phenomenal job. So as a supervisor, I tried to focus on those wins. I tried to recognize like this is their contributions and this is what they do to make the whole community better and celebrate that with them. And as I did that, I actually got more headway with them. I didn't have to fight as hard to get them to do what I wanted them to do in lifeguarding, because it wasn't just me coming down on them as I need you to do this. It's great job on all these other things. Any other thoughts on that one? All right. A little more mechanical question here that I'm excited to talk about. Robert from the Facebook group asks, does anybody have experience with the paddock evacuator system? And does anybody have experience with it and how? Okay, now the call is back live and it is out to everywhere. So I'll go ahead and pick up with the next question, since we didn't have a lot of knowledge on that one, or experience on that one. The next question asked, Dee Dee asked if anybody has taught a blended learning lifeguard course for college credit and created a syllabus. Also, any other tracks for lifeguarding courses was an add-on that I threw in there just to see if anybody has experience with teaching kind of different formats of a lifeguarding course.
So the first question was if there's done in a college setting.
Correct. They did it as a blended learning. They used the Red Cross blended learning or the Stargard Elite blended learning, and then they did it as a semester college credit course.
Oh.
Anybody have experience with that type of thing?
I haven't taught it on a college level, but I've taken like a CPR class at a college for credit. And they basically just took, I think it was the American Heart Association, just took the syllabus provided by the American Heart and just kind of reworked it into the way the college wanted their syllabus done, and just taught it as you would at your own facility.
Joe, I didn't do it at a college level. I did teach it for a high school semester one time, and I did the full course because the semester is long, so I think the blended learning, I mean, back when I did it, we didn't have the blended learning, but teaching the blended learning now, I think that's too short for a semester, but that was just my experience. I did do a high school semester with the full lifeguard course and use the syllabus that was provided. And then you have time to add stuff or practice other stuff.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie, for that. Yeah, I would definitely say that's how I got my first lifeguarding class, was through a high school semester long program. And there was a lot of swimming instruction in it. The lifeguarding instructor basically said that, if they will get you to swimming by the end of the course. And we had pretty good success rate because they got to practice every day for a whole semester.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that needs to come back, because that's how I got mine as well. And too many places are pushing out lifeguard classes 2, 3, 4 day classes in a row, and how much retention from those classes are people holding on to?
Right.
It's almost like they're not ready. They don't have enough practical knowledge to
to remember the rescues where it's automatic. And yeah, I really like that idea. I know when I was at the University of Wyoming as an undergraduate, they offered it. I didn't take it, but I could see a non-blended learning for an entire semester is probably, if you did that first semester, you could probably second semester even do WSI.
It'd be a great idea.
Yeah. And I think really all you need to do is, I mean, if you're just trying to start that kind of program, obviously there's things that the college will require within a course like that, you know, in terms of meeting that, but it could be ideal. And especially, I know like the U of O, I think a long time ago used to, because they fed their pool, their guards that way. It worked out real well.
Great. All right. With that, we'll jump into the next one, which I think will be a good one. Bridget asked if you've had customers who use supplemental oxygen and attend water aerobics programs. Have you experienced this?
No.
I have not for water aerobics, but when we had physical therapy in our pool, we did have that. And we just required them to stay by the wall so that they can continue to use their oxygen while they did their physical therapy.
That was my experience as well. When somebody had, we had a very regular patron that would come in. They'd get in the water and kind of pack their portable kit and set it right next to the edge of the pool, and they were able to get in, obviously during slower times of the pool, to to use it and experience the pool, and they had a lot of success with that. So, any other thoughts on that one? All right. Moving on to the next one. Emily asks, has anybody ever done an aquatics murder mystery event? I'm kind of curious as to how that one would go. I think it could be very interesting and very unique way of doing programs. Anyone have any thoughts on that one or experiences of adjacent events?
My gut reaction to that is maybe because I don't know. I just think in this time of violence that I would have a hard time advertising.
You know what I mean? that makes sense.
That's just me. But
yeah.
I mean, I've been to one of those dinner type things. It's a murder mystery, and they were fun like years ago. But it's just sort of the world has changed, I guess. I don't know. If there could be, and in fact, I went to a place where they did it at a bar, and everybody came in costume, and then there were actors and stuff, and it was a lot of, it was really fun. It did take actors to pull it off, I think, well. But I think that you have to. I don't know, but I'm a chicken. So.
If that does run, I would be very curious to see how well it goes, because I think it's an interesting idea. But I think in an aquatics atmosphere, that would be really tough. It'd be a lot tougher to pull off.
Agreed. All right. Next one. This was a fun one. There's a lot of comments on this one. Paula asked, have you had any clients spit in your gutters, and how did you handle this delicate situation?
Oh yeah.
Time.
My emphasis was I just focused on the facts. It's education, right? I probably get in trouble sometimes because people are like, okay, you don't need to explain it that thoroughly. But just that the water you're spitting into there, that's not really going anywhere. It's going back into the pool. And while we do have chlorine and other chemicals that assist, and our filtration system will do a good job of knocking that stuff back, you're making our work harder for us. So if you could please refrain from doing that and go to a sink or a toilet to do that and make sure you clean up, that would be preferable. Others?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish that was the worst thing.
Right. I had somebody the other day come to me and ask me about showers. Like, why don't you force people to take showers at the pool? Like, it's on the rules sign. Why don't you do it? And again, I use this as an opportunity to remind them that, we just got out of at least out here, a situation where the state required us to really enforce people to wear masks. And I almost had my staff get punched out multiple times for telling people how to carry themselves. So I'm going to work on continued measures and education. I've been trying to work on actually an infographic of why it's important to shower, and try to, print that on like tablet size paper and put it on a sandwich sign right outside the locker rooms. But other than that, I don't know what else to do other than education with that.
Yeah, so I think some rules are just unenforceable, and you just have to. It's more relying on education, people to take that upon themselves than anything else.
Well, and I think the person that remarks that way, that says, how come you're not making people take showers? And you've explained it, but you also say we do adjust the chemistry to take that into consideration. We
Right.
do know that we're handling that situation. So
The best place I ever saw sandwich signs was Provo, Utah. I took my WSIT class there, and their sandwich signs were so funny and so clever. And I took pictures of all of them, and I use them in our facility because they're hilarious, and people get a laugh out of it. And I think they're more compliant with it because of the humor in it than they would if I was the shower Nazi. After being the mask Nazi for 2 years.
Yeah. Joe, I use a sandwich board, and I put it right inside the door, right by the deck shower, and the sign says, "Did you remember to shower?" And you still have people walk right around it, just completely ignore it, because people don't read signs. They get tired of signs too. But when people ask me why the lifeguards don't enforce it, I kindly explain that they have so many other things to focus on, especially the kids in the pool, and that's where I want their focus to be, not on showers.
And I do understand this is slightly off the original topic of somebody spitting in the gutters, but if our own staff aren't showering and stuff before they get in the water to teach some lessons or anything like that, how is it enforceable on our members and clients?
That's a great point. And I think too, as a former swimmer too, is like, you're going to spend the next 2 hours wet. Then I'm getting in a shower beforehand, and I'm going to get cold going into the facility, and now I'm going to be cold for 2 more hours until I get moving again. And it's just that mindset of like, as a former swimmer, is like, you're constantly wet, and you just, God, just one more time, I got it. And then here's the funny part: then you can't get them out of the showers. At the end of the class, like, you're just standing there in hot water and just being happy for a few minutes.
Or the hot tub.
Right. Yeah. The after swim shower conversations. That's like, all right, guys, we need to close the facility, please.
Please go home.
My staff want to go home. And I think that's a great point to enforce it and to model the behavior, especially as leaders that should be getting in the water, as demonstrating that. The other thing that also is helpful is having deck showers if you have them. I know some places don't have them and they're required by code. It's better than nothing, even though it is the water saving half pint shower that's rinsing just the hair. But I think that has helped us a bit too. All right. We had a group member ask a question. They have 2 pools. They've got an 8-lane, 25-yard pool, and then a 40-foot by 25-foot teaching pool. Can they get a robot vacuum that'll work for both pools, or should they get a bigger one for the one pool and a littler one for the other pool?
I guess it depends on how frequent you need to use them, because if it's an indoor facility, you shouldn't have to throw a vacuum in every night if it's not that bad. So you could probably switch between the two every other night or so, or the location in which you drop it in for the bigger pool if it doesn't reach all the way across.
Yeah, I'm kind of actually facing a similar situation right now because my staff have been hard on our pool vacuums. And I think that's a thing that I've heard everywhere. I've heard from friends that they've seen people, hucking vacuums from mechanical room doors over walls into wave pools with the wave pool drops. Christine's like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I have, a 50-meter pool and a 25-yard lap pool, and my 50-meter pool is supposed to not quite be able to be serviced by the smaller vacuums, but I found the bigger vacuums, like the dual head vacuums that are designed for the bigger pools, they're because they're heavier, staff tend to be a little harder on them. And so I'm actually looking at right now going just to 2 smaller vacuums and rotating the placement. It also standardizes it so it's easier. And while most of the parts between the same brands are interchangeable, I think I'm going to go towards having just 2 smaller vacuums and running them as needed.
That is a good point, Joe. You have to keep in mind the staff that are going to be pulling those vacuums in and out. I mean, one of the facilities I worked at, we had to put this like pole where the flag poles are and slowly lower it in the pool because it was so massive. Even I had a hard time lifting it in and out of the pool.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's what we've ran into, is just that staff are just hucking that thing into the pool, or just really struggling. They kind of drop it as they get it on the deck with the bigger one when it's loaded full of water still and still got loaded bags. So,
well, and ultimately it's a safety issue, and we know that the younger people think they can do anything, and they don't think about their backs. So, ultimately the two you'd save money in the long run.
that's
truly.
That's
one
what
back injury is going to cost you big.
Yep, exactly. All right, jumping into the next one. We have a group member ask if anybody has used the Hydro Apps package and what was their experience been with it. Anybody on the panel?
Never heard of it.
Yeah, so I've did a demo of it. It's basically it's kind of a spin-off from, I think, Councilman Hunsacker. They're basically putting together an all-in-one online risk management package. It seemed a little pricey, and it just seemed it seems good. It's like a great idea, but I think with any of those great ideas, they take time and staffing resources to implement well, and the overhead of maintaining some of those systems is a little bit harder. But at the same time, there's some good resources in there. But at this point, I didn't see it as a good fit for my facility and my team. Any other thoughts on that? All right.
Perhaps it'd be good for that. That we had a question last week from a person brand new, opening a brand new facility.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing might be built into the opening process and give you a resource, strong resource.
No, that is good, because it lays it out a little bit nicer.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next one, and I'll be curious this group's questions on it. I have my own views, but Stu has asked if anybody's done their CPO certification online, and if so, what site?
Yeah, I just actually did mine this year. It was with Lauren Broom, I think, from Space Coast Schools. I will say this also about online certification for CPO. In person, I think, is the better route to go, because you can most of the time get to walk into a pump room, actually physically test chemicals, and get guest speakers, a whole bunch of stuff. But I will say she did a great job with keeping it interactive and engaging. It was a 2-day, like 10-hour-a-day course, so it was dreadful to sit there like that, but she kept it engaging, so it was good.
Great. Anybody else have experience with those? Yeah, I know I teach them, but it's a different experience from teaching it online versus in Zoom. So, all right, next question here. This is actually a good one. I think this group will have some good insights. Jackie asks about keeping their pool ready to go with a 48 to 72 hour downtime for a pump repair. Any advice to minimize the turnaround and things to look out for while they've got their pool down for that long?
Raise those chlorine levels.
Yeah.
Raise chlorine levels. Anything else you guys have had experience with?
Well, always be prepared for the what ifs. So, best case scenario, will open in 72 hours, but we'll keep you posted.
Yeah, my experience has been to under promise and over deliver. I don't give timelines to public. We're experiencing a maintenance closure. We will update as soon as we have updates. I don't tell even my staff. I don't tell my swim team partners. I tell them, I will tell you more as I know more. Right now, I'm optimistic, but there's a lot of variables that could go wrong, especially with right now where, we, like there's some parts that are just weeks and weeks out. So if you think you have all the parts, but then you tear it open and get in there and find, I don't have the right part. This part is shot and I can't get it back together. You're going to be down for a bit.
In a perfect world, we would have 2 pump systems for every pool, so we can shut one down and run it off the other while the first one's being fixed.
I did a thing where I kept my front desk person on. And so that they could, one, answer the phone and meet and greet guests, but I also tried to get them to run out and get people before they came out of their cars, because not everybody sees those notices. So, have a free pass in their hand or whatever to make it smooth out, for them. And it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference if you're trying to take care of them and they realize you're really doing everything you can.
Yeah, and I have the luxury of having 2 pumps on both our pools, and so if one goes down, I got coverage. The only thing that would jam me right now would be our boiler. And like you said, if you get in a situation where you need parts and you can't get them, that could be weeks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nope. Been there. And that actually ties into our next question here. That Ashley asks, and this one got a lot of traffic too, asked about a pool being 64 degrees indoors. They've had mechanical issues and waiting for the okay to close from higher ups, but was concerned about swimmer safety. What do you all think?
Yeah, I would have had that thing closed already.
Go ahead.
Too cold. Close it. Close it at 64. That's way too cold.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephanie, for that. I would say I've been in situations where I thought I should have closed a pool and didn't, and I regretted it. And even if the higher ups have had observation, or my advice is you need to close that pool. There's not you're not doing anybody any service by keeping it open, including your staff. The water 64 degrees. How cold is it inside the building? And your staff are just not going to be responsive and attentive. So
I think that a lot of facilities don't also take into consideration like what other facilities are also around you. Can you work with them to get a deal for your members to utilize that other facility while you're down and waiting, so that there's not an interruption to programming or pool usage?
At least they have some place to go or check it out.
Yeah. I know at a facility where I worked at in 2 smaller communities, we had we probably should have formalized the agreement a little more, but we would recognize if there was just a one-off, we had something blip and we had to close the pool down, we would let their lap swimmers swim with us, and our lap swimmers would swim with them for a day. If it was much longer than that, we would have to, they'd be on their own for buying passes and whatnot. But I've had some people argue with me about that say, well, they're gonna swim at the other pool if they like it more. And my answer is great. That it might be a better fit for them and it works great for them. I'm really confident in what we offer, and it's going to work out.
That's true. If that's the concern, then maybe there's other underlying issues we have to work out.
It's about location usually. Either location or schedule is what their choice is. So they'll make a trip somewhere else, but not for long term. We had 2 pools. There were 8 minutes apart drive, and you would have thought that it was miles when we had them have to go to one pool when the other one was closed. Seriously, it was going to be a half an hour. So it's like they'll come back to what they used to. Yeah.
Right. People are creatures of habit, and if you mess with their stuff, they will definitely push back. I've only got a couple questions left in the queue, so if you've got questions or topics you want to discuss, start thinking about those and getting those ready, and you can put them in the chat, or you can just kind of hold them in your head until we get there. There was a meme shared that was kind of fun on the group last week. The person, kind of the person that looks a little distressed with the whiteboard connecting all the dots. And and it was me explaining to my supervisors why we don't get enough staff. So for those of you on the call, if you're struggling to get staff, how do you explain it to your supervisors?
I'm pretty fortunate that I work in a school district that's going through the same thing. Good luck finding bus drivers. Good luck finding custodians. Good luck finding maintenance. So I've been really lucky that we haven't been in a huge situation where we haven't been able to find staff. But being in a school district, I think they're pretty keenly aware of the challenges that all of us are facing right now, let alone the training. And like getting high school kids to want to do that training, one, and having the ability to swim, and secondly, I mean, and even more so, we pay for it if they work for us, so we'll cover the cost of the lifeguarding class, and I think that probably helps us the most.
Yeah, we're definitely struggling with this. We're, my facility, we just rolled out this week hours reductions because we didn't have enough staff to effectively maintain the pool schedule we had. We were spending more time chasing down subs and call-ins than we were actually getting work done. We're, the market we come into, and this is my example I probably said way too many times on here, is our pay rates were behind market, and we're trying to fix it. It sounds like we actually have some movement that might be coming soon, but when they can make $1.50 to $2 an hour more making cold pizzas and not have to worry about people dying on them, that's where they're going to go. And we're in a college town, and what I've actually found is with the university system is putting more and more pressure on them to have unpaid internships and unpaid learning opportunities, and so they just don't have the availability to be able to pick up shifts more. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts on that topic about staff struggles? I see your question in the chat, Thomas, so we'll jump through that one here. Quick hit question here. That's a fun one. Everybody's got their opinions. Rachel asked, what backboard has your organization found works better for extrications? I'm a big fan of the CJ plastic boards. I like the wooden boards too. That's what I learned on. The plastic boards are nice though. The wooden boards are probably...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Or that was basically it. I like the CJ boards. Thomas?
Any backboard that doesn't pinch your fingers when extracting a victim and laying them on the pool deck, anything with a little bit of a lip to save your fingers is going to be huge.
Yeah.
We switched over to the CJ plastic boards. We like those. They work well.
Yeah.
That's what we're using as well.
Any other thoughts? All right. This one is kind of my own interest here because I've seen a lot of controversy. About a week or two ago, I got asked to be an admin on the Aquatics directors and managers group. And what are your thoughts about this group chat that started on that group? I've heard lots of mixed reviews. So if you're in that group and you're getting your Facebook Messenger has been blowing up because of people commenting on this, thoughts from the group?
Oh, I had to turn it off.
I agree with Stephanie. I turned off the notifications before. I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. I'm not sure of the whole history on it. So I don't know. I need to reach out to the other admins and kind of see what was happening. For anybody watching this now, you can mute the discussion. You don't have to report it. I've seen a lot of people hitting report, and I don't think it was an intentional trying to drag everybody into it. I think it's a new feature Facebook rolled out, and we're trying to, build group engagement. But I think the way it implements with that size of a group, I don't know that it's necessarily the best. But again, I would encourage people, you can mute the discussion without reporting it.
Yeah.
So I think I'll encourage people to keep putting their questions into the chat, or not the chat, the discussion on as posts, so people can see it a little bit better. All right, Thomas, he has a question that has anybody worked with state or local law departments, politicians to change codes, laws regarding pools? Example, ring buoys, lifeguard to swimmer ratios. You want to talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I'm in a position right now where we have to share a site with our local school district because I do not have an indoor facility for myself. And the health inspector came by and saw the ring buoys were kind of frayed and not in great shape, and they're telling us we have to replace them. First off, it's not my pool, so it doesn't really affect me, but uh, we don't use them. It's more for decoration at this point. But so, has anybody ever worked with anybody to get things like that removed out? I mean, I could see it for non-guarded facilities, but we have lifeguards for a reason, and I just don't see those things being used.
We worked with the health department for years as part of the aquatic recreation group here in the state of Oregon. And it's a slow moving machine. You know what I mean? It took a lot to make changes, which is not a bad thing, but it's also, I guess we kind of got to the point where for some things it wasn't, so you buy the ring buoy, you know what I mean? Whether
Yeah,
you use it or not.
yeah. We
And
also, I think, and I'm gonna bite myself here for doing this, but I don't remember if it's a 1 to 50 guard ratio or 1 to 100 guard to swimmer ratio, but um, that's a lot. And one of my previous employers really laid into that. Like, no, we don't need more lifeguards. We can by law have this much, and it is very overwhelming for one lifeguard to sit there with 50 swim team kids in the pool at once. But they're like, no, we have by law, this is what we're allowed to do, and that's how we're going to save money. And so bringing down those ratios by law, things like that.
You might want to bring up the lawsuit that happened when a 12-year-old girl drowned at a club practice. It was in 1998, and it was underguarded, and she died, and it was a pretty good lawsuit. It was in Texas. I want to say Richardson, maybe.
it's been my experience that we had more 911 calls on swim team times than we did even our recreation times, because it's holding breath, not eating right, whatever, asthma, those kinds of issues. And if you've got one guard in the water with somebody, that's it. That's all you've got. Your pool's uncovered.
Yeah, I've always been under, even if there's only like 6 people in the pool, I've always fought for a secondary lifeguard. A, rotation, get your eyes off the pool for a little bit, but B, if there is an emergency, you need somebody to back it up. We use Red Cross. The only rescue that we teach that not have a secondary person is the active rescue. So if they need assistance pulling somebody out of the pool and you're by yourself, you got to walk somebody through how to assist you.
Joe, in Oregon, is it the 10-20 rule? Wasn't it the one?
So
or
it's 1 to 40. And then I think that it still has a call out for the 10-20 rule. But we recently went through this as a group in the state where we had a drowning at a facility here in the state, or we had a medical event. I'm not sure if it was a drowning or a medical event or whatever it was. I need to rephrase that. We had a death at a pool, and then the death happened, and it wasn't observed by the swim coach. The swim coach was serving as a lifeguard. I'm not sure the exact specifics of having another lifeguard. I think the case is still in litigation or whatever. And the pool covers were pulled over the pool with the person still in there. And they found them, like an hour later when the parent came to pick them up. And so we, as a group, pushed for the state to reinterpret that rule that allowed the swim coach to also serve as a lifeguard. And the state officials have now determined that that is no longer applicable. And so we were able to get that change made. There's other areas like here, in at least our codes in Oregon allow you to apply for variances, but you have to make a case for it and a cause for it. So I would say like one I'm working on, I have a 500,000 gallon 50-meter pool that with DE filters that I can maintain water quality at turnover rates of less than 6 hours with no problem because of the equipment, the chlorination, and everything else. But it's hard to maintain because the pool was originally designed for an 8-hour turnover. And so for me, what I'm actually looking at is getting variances to allow that flow rate to go lower, but I'm also going to be testing turbidity, ORP, and water clarity. like actual scientific measurement of turbidity to make sure that we're showing that we're actually in compliance at all times. Not because I want to necessarily lower the bar, I'm looking at the actual outcome of the situation. And the health inspectors are like, well, that makes sense. But it's kind of a lot of times the codes are written for the lowest common denominator. And so, there's processes for that. I think the lifeguard changes rule is good. I don't know if anybody here or either of your guys' states model aquatic health code states where they've adopted the model aquatic health code.
I honestly don't know that answer.
Okay. Usually they probably would know. So what it is the, it's that the CDC went through the effort of making a standardized code set that's science driven. It's really good. There's a lot of good information in there, but there's going to be cost to implementation because it's based off of what we think right now, based off the data, is the best practices. So, like one of the requirements is having a dedicated lifeguard supervisor that's not in rotation on during all times the pool's open. For small pools that only have a one lifeguard facility, that's a huge cost increase. But the idea is there's somebody holding the lifeguards accountable for what they're doing. I don't know. I mean, I've had experience. Our health officials are more than willing to work with us, but the state also has requirements for all the stakeholders to comment. And if it's going to be something that impacts stakeholders that have money or political pull, you may have some opposition. Any other thoughts on code changing or anything else? All right. With that, we have one other question in the chat from Stephanie, who chimed in on a couple things from Federal Way, Washington. Has anybody had a deaf or hearing impaired student in a lifeguard class or an applicant?
I have not.
I have not.
Orly, you haven't? No?
So my question to the group is, we have a young lady that she hasn't explained completely what her issue is, but she's asked, if the videos are closed captioned, which they're not. The American Red Cross ones are not closed captioned as of yet, the lifeguard ones. Or if we have an interpreter, ASL interpreter for the class, which leads me to believe she's completely deaf. And then the question I pose, because this has come up with Red Cross instructors before, is lifeguards have to be able to hear somebody call for help. So there's a line there as far as being ADA, but also being safe. So any thoughts on that?
So the ADA just states that you have to be able to make reasonable accommodations for somebody. So I can see the class making those reasonable accommodations. I don't see that necessarily being an issue, but employment could be where the problem lies because, like you're saying, if let's say they use a cochlear hearing something to hear that, but the battery goes dead, and now all of a sudden they're left with nothing to hear any issues that could be around the pool area. I think that's where your issue is going to come in for hiring. But I think the class accommodations, and I'm actually surprised that the Red Cross ones aren't closed caption. I've never had to use them, but closed caption ones. But I think there's a handful of people I know have things installed on their phones or computers that auto create the closed caption for any video that's playing on their device.
Other thoughts?
I
Well,
encountered this.
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I encountered this myself because I was sitting at a pool that I had just started at, and we had an awesome kid on swim team with cochlear, and they, to start them for races when their implants aren't installed, like the coach has to prompt with the arm raise or something. But so then I just Google search like deaf lifeguard, and there's this guy in the Guinness Book of World Records who is completely deaf and like had a history of like an insane amount of saves. So there is like kind of crazy precedent for that, but I agree it goes to like employment, we can make accommodation for the class, and then like a can of worms of like what if. So there's histories of it happening in the past, but like it's 2022, so it is an issue. I'd love to see like how, if anyone has a deaf lifeguard, and how they accommodate that, but I've come across that as well.
I I almost kind of want to play a little devil's advocate that I don't know that I see as much of a potential issue, because I've guarded a bunch of events and swims where you don't hear anything, and it's all driven by sight and by your scanning zones. And then I would also say, like, people don't call out for a medical event, which is primarily the number of rescues and saves that I've had to go in, is because somebody had a medical event. It wasn't the traditional like flail, vertical body position, instinctive drowning response. It was somebody slipped quietly under the water. Um, my gut says that's the direction that it needs to go versus the direction of, um, of a hearing test. I could see potentially notifications and activations of EAP, but is that something that can be reasonably accommodated within the workforce? Is there something where, a panic button or something is wired in that creates they carry a hip pack that vibrates or something like that when they're the additional responding lifeguard? I don't know. And I think it's all facility dependent, but I think the question that you really get into for the ADA standpoint is there ways to reasonably accommodate this individual to perform the essential duties? So
I'm, being at a wave pool where you have 400 or 500 people in the water, you don't do it by sound. It's all
no.
it's all by that. And then very often, and I was sitting here thinking, well, the whistle signals, you've got to have the whistle signals. Well, those don't always happen. Usually you
Right.
see that a guard hits the water. They don't necessarily whistle before they go. They are supposed to, but that doesn't necessarily happen. And so I think that there are some ways that, with a signal light or something, usually people who are deaf like that are extremely observant, of what's going on around them and the people around them. So yeah, I'm kind of with Joe on that one. You have to figure out, if it's
Yeah, and
gonna
I think
your ability.
I think it's going to be interesting to see, because like I know I went to school with an individual who was deaf from like 6th grade through high school, and like high pitch. I don't remember actually ever being at the pool with him, but I know, like, even though he wasn't able to hear voice, like high pitch sounds like a whistle, he was able to notice them. And so because just the vibration, even though he wasn't able to acutely hear details, he was able to notice those sounds. Like when a big bass would drive by or somebody hit a big bass drum, he'd jump. So I kind of wonder if there's something in that realm that would potentially work. So anything else on that topic? All right, I am out of questions. So with that, anything else you guys want to share that you've got going on, or anything that you're excited about for this next coming year in the aquatics world?
Is anybody
Thomas?
going to the NRPA in Sandusky, Ohio? I think it's at the end of January.
I'm not. Any conferences that you guys are going to be attending here in the next coming year?
No, that's the one I'm going to. The one that's in Sandusky.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't there one in Colorado Springs in February, the 11th,
Yep.
18th? Yeah.
The Association of Aquatics Professionals Conference. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's not.
Best conference I've ever been to. It looks great.
I'd have to put in a request to go then.
Yeah, it's super close for us. It's like a 4-hour drive.
Yeah. It's that conference. If you have any chance to go, I am not affiliated with the conference at all, but it's really, really good. All aquatics, nothing else. It's very well done. So
I agree with Joe. The Association of Aquatics Professionals is really, really good. I don't get to go to this upcoming one, but I saw that they're offering a join virtually for $250. So let's see if I can join virtually again this year. But next year it's in Reno, so I'm trying to go to that one.
yeah,
But
I am as well. Also,
yeah, all things aquatics. It's a good one.
we might have to get a Northwest bus to go down to the Reno conference.
I'm in for that.
Because you're about 4 hours north of us, so then you just drive down here and we'll pick you up.
Yeah. I can tell it to my boss that we're going to save money that way.
Yeah,
Right?
I'm looking at the one that's coming up in February and just pass this on to my boss to see if they'll let me spend that money.
Yep. All right, everybody. I really appreciate you all participating today. We will be. I plan to go the next couple weeks, even though it's around holiday season. So I understand everybody's got ins and outs and on the road, but we will be here, and I'm hoping to have a little bit of a tweak on the registration and reminder emails. It should look a little different. I hit a little snag with it this week, but next week I think I should have it worked out that it'll be a little more of an update of all the other projects and stuff that we've got going on. So with that said, I appreciate everybody here, and we will catch you next time.